Yeah, thank you, Rahat. So I think we'll begin with the webinar. Once again, a warm welcome to everybody. As you know, artificial intelligence offers great opportunities for us to expand access to learning and support innovation. But of course, at the same time, it's also raising questions about ethical, social, and policy challenges that must be addressed. And therefore, in order to ensure equity, inclusion, and human agency, UNESCO has advocates for a human centered approach to AI. Today's webinar brings together policymakers, researchers, and practitioners to explore how AI intersects with lifelong learning, workplace skills, citizenship, and inclusion. And so, to open this session and to open this webinar, I'm very honored to invite my team leader of Quality Learning Ecosystems, Ms. Rahat Zoldo Shaliva, on behalf of the Director of the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, to give the opening remarks. Rahat, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this interesting webinar on behalf of the Director of the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, Ms. Isabel Kempf. First of all, like my colleague has already opened the webinar with the congratulatory words on the International Education Day, it's my pleasure also to wish all of us a very happy International Day. Today, let us imagine a world where everyone, regardless of age, background, or circumstance, has access to a personal mentor, a guide that learns, evolves, and anticipates their needs. This vision, powered by AI, is within reach. Yet, the question is not just what AI can do for us, but how we harness it responsibly and inclusively. Will AI unlock doors to a better, more equitable future, or will it reinforce barriers for those already at the margins? That is what we are here today to discuss during our webinar on lifelong learning in the age of artificial intelligence. As we speak, the AI revolution is transforming the way we govern, communicate, live, participate, and learn. It has the potential to become either a powerful tool for emancipation or an instrument of alienation, depending on the choices we make today. To meet this challenge and ensure that AI serves the common good, we need a threefold approach: sharing knowledge between governments, businesses, civil society organizations, and researchers, establishing ethical standards that safeguard human rights and dignity, educating a new generation of global citizens who can critically engage with AI and shape its development more responsibly. While AI innovations can advance knowledge, they can also reinforce inequalities. For instance, large language models currently exclude 99% of the world's languages, as major chatbox applications are trained on only around 100 of the world's 7,000 languages. To ensure that AI reflects diverse worldviews and benefits all, we must democratize access to knowledge, foster innovation, and strengthen ethical decision-making. That is why in 2021, UNESCO adopted a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, currently implemented in over 60 countries and addressing issues such as algorithmic transparency, bias mitigation, and environmental sustainability. With the vast array of AI tools and technologies available, we must move beyond a technocentric mindset and apply ethical guidelines to cultivate critical thinkers and proactive leaders. Navigating AI transition requires developing a new generation of citizens who not only acquire technical skills, but also understand and critically assess the social and ethical implications of AI, ensuring its responsible and meaningful integration into society. Educators are crucial in this approach and the process and must ensure that they are trained adequately to guide learners. Just last year, UNESCO launched 2 AI competency frameworks in 2024, one for teachers and one for students to support AI integration and critical use in education. This work is complemented by our current initiatives on AI and lifelong learning. we at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, together with the Shanghai Open University, are currently not only generating research on how AI can support older people learning, we are also about to launch a new training program aimed at strengthening AI and digital competences for adult educators that will be rolled out across 9 countries. For us at the UNESCO Institute for lifelong learning is not just a necessity, but a fundamental human right. UIL has been actively working to develop digital competencies for diverse learners, including refugees, migrants, and older adults. For example, our research collaboration with Shanghai Open University focuses on bridging the digital divide for older adults, ensuring that they are not left behind in the digital transition. Our work also extends to educators themselves through a project aimed at strengthening their competencies across 9 countries. This initiative is a part of a collaborative mission to develop a robust digital competency framework that upholds dignity, equity, inclusion, and ethics, with a particular focus on artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. These efforts reflect our commitment to making AI-driven learning ethical, inclusive, and empowering. I look forward to today's discussion as we explore how AI is transforming education and lifelong learning, where we can collaborate to unlock its full potential for lifelong learning for all. Thank you all of you for joining us, and I give you the floor back to Annapurna by wishing a successful but also enriching discussion during the webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahat, for those insightful remarks. As highlighted, AI presents both opportunities and challenges, and I'm really looking forward to exploring both angles today in today's webinar. I would also like to say that our director has joined the meeting and she would be giving the conclusion remarks for the webinar today. So with that, we will now move to our main session. And again, Rahat, I would like to bring you on board as the moderator for this session. And we have the next time of the webinar to continue the discussions based on the points that you have raised in the opening remarks. So over to you, Rahat, and good luck to everybody and have a great discussion today.
Thank you so much, Annapurna, and thank you so much for all the speakers who are joining today with us to address 3 main questions of this session. I would like to repeat the objectives of this session so that we take a note about the key issues that will be addressed by the 4 speakers today. Our objective of the session is to discuss current trends in policy, research, and innovative practices in emerging technologies such as AI and its relation to lifelong learning and the concept of agency in particular, and highlight the role of adult learning and education in fostering digital competencies with a focus on adult educators and bridging the gray digital divide. One of our speakers will address to this question. And lastly, to engage educators and participants in interactive discussions and activity to foster a deeper understanding of AI and emerging technologies in adult education settings. And with that, I would like to welcome 4 speakers of this session, starting with Ms. Rebecca Ainon, Mr. Martin, I again forgot how to pronounce your surname.
Dugiamas.
Dugiamas, and Miss Virginia Rhodes, and Miss Annapurna Ayapan. Thank you so much for these speakers for joining. And we have 4 major themes to address as well during the session. The first, it's my pleasure to invite Miss Rebecca Ainon to address the question of reconfiguring lifelong learning in the AI era. Rebecca is, let me introduce Rebecca to the participants. Rebecca is a professor of education, the Internet and Society at the University of Oxford. At the university, she is jointly appointed by the Oxford Internet Institute and Department of Education. Her research focuses on the intersections between new technologies, learning and education across the life course, and questions of equity and social justice. Rebecca, welcome. And we requested Rebecca to address two questions in particular. So the questions were, how can policymakers move beyond instrumental and technologically deterministic approaches to AI in lifelong learning to develop more holistic, human-centered frameworks that consider societal and ethical implications? The second question will be addressed, we asked Rebecca to address to some extent is what are the key lessons for future research and policies to ensure that AI is integrated into lifelong learning in ways that support human agency as well as development from a more ethical perspective. And Rebecca, the floor is yours. You have 8 minutes for your presentation, followed by the next speaker. At the end, we'll be taking up the questions to Rebecca's presentation. Rebecca, over to you, please.
So much, and it's an honor to be here, and thank you for that very kind introduction. So I've been asked to address some quite big questions, but what I want to focus on is a kind of really hopefully a short talk that will set the agenda around thinking about the different dynamics at play when we think about AI and lifelong learning, and how we might then as a community shape those dynamics to create a kind of AI and lifelong learning ecosystem that we would like to see. So essentially what I'm going to do is I want to first just talk about a few projects that I've done that begin to highlight the different relations between the varied actors that are engaged in AI and lifelong learning. And I want to talk about the kinds of agendas that they approach to help us think about the kinds of lifelong learning and AI we would like to see in current times. So as we know, there's a very complex ecosystem of actors at work in the AI and lifelong learning space. And these include edtech businesses, multi-tech companies, national governments, intergovernment organizations, investors in edtech and academia. And all of these and other actors are working both within and across countries to influence the use of AI in lifelong learning. And this influence is, of course, part economic in the sense that certain actors are generating profit from the use of AI in lifelong learning, but also in part really important culturally, because all actors want to shape the AI and lifelong learning sphere in ways that they think are important and are valuable to them. And it's these more cultural practices, how different actors are shaping what the purpose of lifelong learning is in an AI era, how it should be funded, how it should be conducted, and how it's regulated as part of these debates about AI and lifelong learning that I'd really like to highlight in this talk. And I should say that most of the data that I'm talking about is primarily UK based, but with a kind of global focus where possible. So I'm going to talk about three kind of broad questions. First of all, how do different groups define what AI is to them? Whose definition or framing of AI is most powerful in these debates around lifelong learning? And what kinds of educational values are being promoted by these most powerful groups? So I'm just going to talk briefly about two studies. The papers are open access, so please do feel to take a look at them. But the first example is based on interviews with representatives from academia, the edtech industry and government to examine how they conceptualize AI and lifelong learning. And the second is based on a thematic literature review that examines the ways that different academic communities conceptualize AI and lifelong learning. And from these studies, what we found is that in academia, particularly from the AIED community, they really see AI as a kind of methodology. And so for them, AI is a way to understand and facilitate learning and to support learning across all contexts and stages of life, often from a psychological perspective. And this was supported by our second study, where AI is most typically seen as a way to increase the efficiency of learning, or where AI could support a kind of quite cognitive, constructivist approach to learning by engaging with some kind of learning companion to facilitate that individual learning process. And there were very few kind of wider sociological studies that really think about how AI is reconfiguring social life, which has huge implications, I think, for how we think about not only the process of learning, but also how knowledge is constructed. So in contrast, though, what we see is edtech companies largely view AI as a kind of legend, if you like. In fact, they're kind of leveraging the kind of hype and excitement around AI to encourage interest in their products. But interestingly, they tend not to build very highly risky and innovative AI systems. They're trying to build very reliable systems that are focused on very specific learning contexts and tasks that are valued by the largest market possible, where products are very well received and seen as reliable by most people. So there's a kind of tension there between the excitement around AI and the realities for companies producing these technologies. And for policymakers, for us at the time we were doing this research, AI was quite uses a kind of rhetorical tool in some senses, really with a bit of an absence really on discussions on specifically discussions of AI and lifelong learning, although there are of course a lot of discussions about AI and responsibility and ethics. Now this of course is hugely changing, but what we've seen is perhaps a change in the network where a lot of the commercial actors are kind of dominating over some of the policy actors in this space. So I think the key point I'm trying to make is that these different ways of thinking about AI by these different three groups have implications for the design and provision of AI and lifelong learning, both in policy and practice. So in another study, we thought about, well, how are different stakeholders engaged in AI lifelong learning, kind of positioning themselves in the online sphere? Who are they associated with, and what are their values and interests? And to do this, we built a knowledge graph, which is essentially a network graph with more information about stakeholders and the specific different entities, and also the different relations between them. And the methodology is in the paper, so I won't go into it here, but I just wanted to highlight two things here. So the first, all you have to look at in this very complicated diagram are the colors. So yellow is an ed tech company, green is a product, grey is a tech company, red is a person typically from the commercial sector, and blue is a concept. And in contrast, purple is a charity, orange is government, and pink is an academic institution. And so what we see just from the colours in this graph is quite how dominant the commercial sector in broad terms is leading the conversation online about AI and lifelong learning. And from this approach, we don't just want to see whose actors are kind of connected with each other, but also what they're talking about. And what we've seen when we deep dive into this network, we see that a lot of these actors and individuals are very much based within a quite psychological view of thinking about learning and efficiency of learning processes. And there was very limited discussion of wider purposes of lifelong learning and education, debates about privacy, surveillance, and other potential risks of AI. And so just to sort of emphasize this point, you can perhaps see that given these blue circles are kind of concepts that groups are coalescing around, there is one conversation that many of them are kind of assigning value to. And that concept is personalization. So personalization of learning is the main story being told about why we should use AI in education and lifelong learning. And many of these actors were orientating their practices around this concept. And personalization, while in some settings can be incredibly valuable, in others it can be problematic because it can promote quite an individualistic approach to education, where lifelong learning is seen as something to be acquired by an individual for individual benefit. And you know, we might want to broaden out what we're conceptualizing AI being able to do for learning and for education. So taken together then, there are sort of three key themes from this work that we've been doing. First, that the commercial sector, broadly defined, is tending to dominate quite a lot of the discussions around AI and lifelong learning. Second, that then a lot of the motivations for developing AI and supporting AI and lifelong learning is tending to be very much focused on kind of employability agendas rather than perhaps other ways we might be thinking about the purposes of lifelong learning. And third is that this kind of in this network of building the kind of futures around AI and lifelong learning, it would be great to see a stronger kind of prevalence of different kinds of education members of the community within that network. And so, although there are never really direct impacts, I think it's reasonable to argue that those whose vision of AI is most dominant in the online sphere and in these conversations will shape the design of technology, and what kinds of technologies are being developed and supported for lifelong learning. And so I think this means that there is a risk that AI becomes focused on kind of individual learning activities, perhaps those very much focused on economic agendas, and things that have quite broad market appeal, rather than thinking something more broadly about the different ways that lifelong learning are important to society. Now, of course, all of this is still in flux. I think it's really interesting. Some aspects of edtech markets are not as robust as perhaps they were a few years ago. There's a lot of concerns around AI and a lot of really excellent work around kind of questions of responsible AI and ethics in AI. So I think what we want to be able to do is find ways to bring in more of a focus on educational purpose, on questions of human agency, and on questions of what inclusive and sustainable AI for lifelong learning might look like. Because I think focusing on these discussions and trying to shape the network within those terms really encourages us to think about what we want as a society from AI and lifelong learning, rather than thinking about AI as something that is already given and kind of fixed. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for addressing a lot of questions in your presentation, particularly focusing on how different ways of looking at AI, relationship between AI and lifelong learning can help us further question some of the developments that are happening in the world in relation to AI in application of AI in education, particularly, and how the commercial sector's dominance sometimes impacts the dominance of discourse, of personalization of learning, and how does it also impact on the general definition of lifelong learning and adult education as well, because we know that there is also a tendency to define lifelong learning as from the instrumentalist perspective as well, and narrowing down, yet we know also lifelong learning is much broader concept that encompasses not only learning for employment, for labor market, or for efficiency, whether it's at the individual worker level or at the society level, but it's also about social aspect of learning in particular. Thank you so much. I'm sure that there will be a lot of questions from the audience in the chat. If you could address some of them in writing, that would be great. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite our second speaker, Mr. Martin Dugiamas. Martin is our long-term partner in the discussion on open education tools and platforms. And Martin will be addressing the question on the workplace learning in the age of AI, a particular emphasis on challenges and opportunities. Before giving the floor to Martin, I would like to introduce him. Martin Dugiamas, he's a Moodle founder and head of research at the Moodle in Australia-based. I hope I'm right. Australia-based open access learning management system, and he's an edtech pioneer, creator of this Moodle, the world's most widely used open source learning platform with over 500 million current users globally, supporting schools, higher education, workplaces, but also governments and public sector learning as well. With 2 decades of leadership, he has helped define online education, emphasizing openness, accessibility, and innovation to bridge educational gaps worldwide. Beyond Moodle, Martin champions Open Tech Association, aiming to encourage better use and consistency in open education technology. Recognized with honorary degrees from 3 universities, he has recently returned to full-time research to explore the use of emerging technologies such as AI and AR in ways that best support every person on their lifelong learning journey. Over to you, Martin, and we'll be happy to hear some of the developments that you have been engaged in the work of Moodle as well.
Thanks, Rakat, and for that lovely introduction. And hello, everybody. This is a very short time to talk about a field which has so much in it and a lot to talk about. So I've selected a few things, and hopefully this is interesting. I was trying to run the Moodle organization until a year ago. And this past year, I've had the ability to really step back in the head of research role and just look at the world and do a lot of reading, a lot of study, and a lot of prototyping and experimenting, and I'm loving it. So I'm having a really good reflective learning period myself at the moment, lots of deep learning. So I'll share with you a few thoughts. So there's a lot of agendas in the world, and Rebecca actually touched on some of this too. This is one way of looking at it. There is the computer science of AI, which is extremely exciting. All of the sci-fi we've ever seen seems to be in reach, including traveling across across space. We can solve a lot of the problems and the mysteries we've had for hundreds and thousands of years. So that's very exciting, and it's very understandable why researchers are very heavily working on AI, and it's progressing extremely fast. Then we have AI companies, and some of those researchers work at those companies, but not all of them. And they tend, especially the US ones, want to insert themselves into the work. Now, I'm going to be focusing on the workplace in this few minutes. And generally, they're there to make profit. They're there to gather quite large wealth and power. They have the opportunity to have immense amounts of power. So, that's a lot of the negative things that are happening around AI tend to be related to that. Organizations and governments tend to be looking at the bottom line. They are looking at AI and how to do more with less. Sometimes that means less people. And over time, that will mean less employment. And so then that leaves the rest of us, the individuals, just trying to survive and keep up in this situation that's going on. So my agenda is to not focus on how we use today's AI today as much, although I'm obviously playing with it like you all are, but I'm trying to think about where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years. And one of the biggest things I think is so important is we need to fight for full openness in all the major tools in AI. This empowers more people, hopefully everyone. This allows transparency and privacy as well in our data and our activities. And it promotes the development of AI in our interests rather than in a few people's interests. The other thing I'm very committed to at the moment is to help people think about a radical upturn in how our whole economy works. We have this phrase that's underneath all of the economy, which is basically you need to work to get paid to live. And that simply won't necessarily be true in future. And so thinking about how we support billions of people when there aren't billions of jobs is really the problem that I think all governments should be talking about, all people should be talking about, and we should be pushing each other. So that affects, we're talking about work, of course, because, let's look in the near term. In the near term in the workplace, AI power will continue increasing dramatically. And even this week, there was an open source model from DeepSeek that is as powerful as the most powerful model from OpenAI, and it runs on a phone. And that's the level of improvement we're seeing in open source and in AI technology in general. There will continue to be many unnecessary wrapper startups. So there's the big companies doing AI, and then there's thousands of startups and people trying to make businesses around those. That is very distracting because it looks like there's thousands and thousands of products out there, but there's really only a few. A lot of them are very similar. We're going to see more AI built into existing tools. So, for example, we're using Photoshop and there's like an AI feature to generate an image and so on. And you've all probably seen those, but all the tools we're using in work are getting AI, and that includes Moodle as well. And hopefully you are, and I am, and a lot of us are seeing benefit of automating small tasks. So summarizing a meeting or writing an email or producing a report from a bunch of data. Smaller tasks like that, customer support, developing code, AI is proving very useful, and it's definitely working now, and it's getting better all the time. But this year we're going to see a big development with agents, and that's a more That's an approach where AI works on a larger problem over time. You give it a more difficult problem and it breaks it down and it works on it in the background. And it might come back to you in 10 minutes or half an hour or a day, and it's done a lot of work. And those larger tasks are something we're going to see really hitting us this year as that becomes more mainstream. In the longer term, everything you can do on a computer, and most of us are working on computers, I think, will be automated or can be automated. That's just a fact. That will happen. Everything you can do with your body can be automated with robots. The advances in robot research is truly astounding. The hardware is there, the software is there, it's getting them all to work together, and that seems to be very, very close. So you'll be able to spend the equivalent of a very small car and have a robot that works 24 hours a day and does more than a person could do. This takes us to what do we do in this environment? It's very scary, right? So here's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These bottom two layers, potentially in the most optimistic scenario, if we all work this out, it could be solved. Our basic needs could be taken care of. And that's because we have AI researchers that are working on all the big problems to solve things like food and water and all the SDGs. That's, would be marvelous. And I think we should all be aiming for that, actually. Why wouldn't we? And then the top, that actually frees us up, because a lot of people now, what has been the situation for the last 50, 100 years? You work all day long, you're tired, you come home and then you're with the family and then you sleep. And you don't really have a lot of time for these top three things. We squeeze it in around work, or some of us define ourselves by work. And that may not need to be the case anymore. And it turns out that we know this is exactly possible and in fact desirable, because that's what rich people do. Rich people they don't worry about those basic needs. They have all the time in the world to focus on what's happening at the top. So it seems like something we could all be doing. But let's talk about the future of work. So I think there still will be work, even if you're not being paid for it necessarily. There will always be organizations. It's in our DNA to be in groups and organize and spend time and come together like we are now to discuss and share and learn from each other. It's just that organizations will become a lot more fluid and flexible, and people will come and go, and you'll join a project for a while and then you'll join something else, and you might get more involved in community-based things that are in your area where you're actually with real people. When you are working in these jobs, you'll be doing a lot of management, because a lot of the low-level stuff is going to be done by AI. We're going to need AI to actually sort through the very heavy misinformation that's coming at us about new people. So there are already lots of cases documented about people who have complete histories online, LinkedIn pages, videos. They've had phone calls and all sorts of things, and the person never existed. You can actually, with deep fakes and so on, completely invent a personal history for somebody. So just to deal with that, we're going to need AI to even understand who people are, unless we already know them and we're side by side with them for a long time. When you come into an organization, you're going to need excellent onboarding and support. And to do that, it means that the only thing that's going to be really constant in an organization is going to be an AI that is learning from the activities of all the people all the time. And that becomes the organizational memory. And that is what you come in and start learning from to boot up and get quickly into whatever project it is. So here you are, here's someone on their first day at work. The AI goes, let me fill you in. Let me help you understand what your job is and the sort of things, what's been happening up till now and what's going on and who's who and all that stuff. So that's actually one of my projects that we're doing. We're prototyping is a Moodle bot. We're actually building this system for the Moodle organization, and we'll be testing that internally. And we're building the whole thing as open source. So if it works and if it starts becoming really useful. And I have the criteria of 80% of all the staff need to say, yes, we love having this AI in our groups, in our teams. Then we'll share it widely. But I think a lot of people are going to be working on very similar tools. The key thing here is openness. And I have a few recommendations, some takeaways I'd love for you to listen to. First of all, keep up your own learning. It's a very tumultuous time. We all need to be learning as much as we can about everything, basically, but particularly your areas and about this new technology. Openly publish as much good data as you can to help counter misinformation in future AIs. We are reliant upon the data, so we have to put as much good data out there as we can. That's what's going to make future AI work better for us. An AI just trained on Twitter, for example, could be a bit sketchy. An AI trained on people who've really thought about things and academic journals and so on, that's better information. Make sure you cite your sources, especially if you're using AI. People deserve to know. They need that transparency. Design everything as simply as possible, because almost everything we design is becoming components in a larger system, and everything starts working together. The whole internet is becoming one big machine, basically. And the AIs are the only thing that can process it all together. I would recommend we make sustainability a key goal for every project. Every new thing that's happening, think about the sustainability. And I've just seen too many well-intentioned projects from around the EU, for example, some I've been involved with, where everyone thinks about funding the novelty, but they don't think about funding the 10 or 20 years of maintenance required to make that thing be useful to humanity. And that sustainability, we've got to build that into everything. That's a sustainable goal itself. Support other people being open, and finally, make AI and education good for people. This is the key goal. And something I wrote on the answer in the quick Q&A here was a lot of choices around AI and education are about not using AI. Because if you're trying to build this muscle here in someone's head, it needs to work. Just like you wouldn't send your friend to go to the gym for you. You need to do it. So that's a really key thing to remember. And I have some contact details here if you ever want to reach out. And I have a lot more time because I'm spending it all researching and doing AI these days, and I'm really enjoying it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Martin, for this very inspiring presentation and giving us a little bit more tips, I guess, how to deal with the current noise around AI, lifelong learning, workplace learning, but also learning for ourselves throughout life. And I would like to particularly probably focus on some of the issues that you have raised already about the futures of work, how the organizations are becoming more fluid and flexible, and the AI development may even further this flexibility and fluidity. But also, I think one important aspect that you also raised is about how to contribute ourselves as active, proactive citizens and individuals to the misinformation that's happening around, so that we have better, good quality, cited, reliable data that actually AI algorithms are oftentimes based on, in particular. And then you also raise some of the positive, I guess, interpretation of how the development in AI can take over a more basic level of basic tasks, so that the human potential can actually flourish by concentrating more on more creative components of our work and daily life as well. And I think with that, I would like to go to the next speaker and then find out more about the situation with particularly a vulnerable group of adults who are adult learners. And I would like to invite Miss Virginia Rhodes, who is the research professor on lifelong learning at the Institute for Future Education at the Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico as well, and to speak to the issue of older adults learning and great digital divide in particular, based on the recent case studies that she has been involved with us at the UIL as well. Maybe I will give the floor to you, Virginia, and you have already questions as well. I don't want to repeat, to present some of your thoughts around that. Thank you. Over to you, Virginia. Virginia, you have to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here and to provide an overview of what we are currently doing regarding the how to bridge the digital divide, especially for older adults, as a foundation of what we can how to inspire developers and thinkers regarding how to create artificial intelligence initiatives and tools, considering this kind of people, this kind of group that is vulnerable and needs to be considered and not left behind. So we are currently conducting a thematic research project with the Institute of Line of Learning of UNESCO and the Shanghai Open University. The case study is composed by 6 case studies from Chile, China, Poland, Colombia, United States, and South Africa. And it's a qualitative case study, and it is composed by the methodology for documentary analysis, semi-structured interviews with the managers, teachers, learners, and explore dimensions like the national, local, and institutional complex context and implementation, and the impact and challenges and lessons learned. First of all, let me introduce some of the findings in our study regarding the challenges that the older adults are facing in accessing and engaging with digital learning. That is perhaps it's more connected with the top of the pyramid that Martin introduced. That is physical and cognitive barriers, the physiological and emotional barriers like age aims, social isolation, lack of support, the family dependence, but also with the socioeconomic barriers at the top of the pyramid, limited financial resources, the gender disparity, and the infrastructure and policy-related barriers that are they suffered mostly connectivity and the lack of policies to attend to pay attention to this kind of vulnerable group. So we decided to share with you a case from Chile. That is the case of Conecta Mayor Foundation in Chile. This is a lot of information, but I want to provide you an overview of this case. It's a pioneering initiative that started with the COVID-19 pandemic, and the key objectives was to provide digital access, social inclusion, and cultural change in regarding nation. It has a gerontological approach and collaboration with local governments, and it's one of the most important drivers for this action was the demographic in Chile, and I think in most of the world, that is the Asian population, and the increase of the population aged for 60 and more, and some of the structural challenges like illiteracy, the low pensions, and limited access to technology, decentralization, and the digital divide that these kind of people even not use internet. So we need to understand that there is a growing number of people in the world that don't use internet, and they are going to be left behind for the current trends regarding AI, and mostly regarding technology itself. These persistent barriers in performing complex digital tasks and insufficient in public policies and can left these people out of the digitization of life. The implementation of this case, the implementation of this initiative is based on gerontological principles like adaptation to the cognitive, motor, and sensory capacity of all the adults, reinforcing confidence for avoiding feelings of frustration, and practical and personalized approach that is small groups, the ratio among mediators and participants, and learning based on repetition and solving real tasks. Empowerment and autonomy is the most important things that they need to guide the participant to complete the tasks and to encourage the practice between sessions. The implementation of this activity has 3 stages. Like the first was distributing adapted device, but one lesson learned was that providing technology doesn't guarantee the effective use. A second stage was focused on digital training program based on educational technology with a interdisciplinary design and focused on trainers, mostly the municipal public servants that can replicate the program in a decentralized model, very connected with the territory. The impacts are really amazing. The program improved the digital skills, the confidence and autonomy regarding using devices, reducing isolation because they felt more companionship during the program that conducts to a community effect because participants later act as instructors for other groups, and it's only that have some limitations that are the lack of resources in rural areas. That is, the territory is very important here. The high demands that exceeds the way to consider all the people that is in need with this initiative, and the lack of large-scale evaluation of the educational impact. What are the key insights from the Chile case? I think the most important is that right-based approach and a holistic approach that consider digital inclusion as a human right. Also, it's needed to address social and material barriers. The foundation of the pyramid is not guaranteed for everybody, And that's I think that the agenda that Martin introduced is very, very important, because we have to think that most of the people in the world that don't have access of the food and a kind of living that is of quality. It's not only access to technology. Also, the importance of strategic partnerships that like territorial collaborations and partnerships with diverse sectors, and the communication hubs that can be established in each territory, and also the private sector involvement. I think also the important is that this localized implementation and the culturally relevance, and how we can have a transformative impact, not only to bridge the digital divide, but also to combat the social isolation and the way that the society see the people, the older people and the ageism that is still present in our societies. And it's important also to think about scalability and sustainability challenges regarding this for resources, and also with regarding policy gaps. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a bigger case study that include different regions, and I want to share with you some of the. This is an advance of the findings of our case study that we can share some of these insights. Like in Africa, the focus was in bridge gender and economic disparities, while promoting intergenerational cooperation. In Poland, we can see that this is an initiative that is also focused on the territories and municipalities, that is called CAS centers, that has a long-term progress and sustainability, and also the intergenerational learning that strengthens the society cohesion and avoid the stereotypes. The importance in the case of United States, that the senior planet, that streams a robust nonprofit sector to sustain this initiative and offer virtual and in-person training. The case of China, that is the Shanghai University of the Elderly, that shows the way that centralized policy frameworks for example, the Digital Literacy Action Plan provides systemic implementation of programs and also the scalability of digital platforms that ensures that they're reaching even the rural regions. And in Latin America, that is the case in Colombia and Chile, as I mentioned, that is mostly focused on overcoming the systemic inequalities and how to provide entrepreneurial training and address the difficulties of the people that are old but still work, and how to provide these skills so as to continue working in a defined context nowadays. The question that was mentioned for the Lifelong Learning Institute is how to address the challenges with education and digital learning. No? So customized learning approach is very important, differentiation instruction, practical and scenario-based learning, flexible learning formats, blended learning, and community-based models that are very important. Also, inclusive and supportive environments that is low stress settings, that non-competitive environments, and intergenerational learning that is very, very inspiring for both the youngers and the olders to collaborate and to understand each other. And technological and pedagogical innovations like provide tools that are simple but can help the elders to conduct a practical stick like using ATMs and digital health devices to us to be trained in artificial intelligence, mostly regarding the tools that were that are present in our daily life, and that's those programs go from among these basic and advanced skills that are needed, and also the assistive technologies. And it's also
Rebecca?
important to...
Sorry, maybe you can wrap it up in 1 minute. Sorry, the time is, yeah.
Yeah,
Of essence. Sorry,
yeah.
Yeah.
So regional contextual adaptation and also policy advocacy and stakeholder engagement. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was very quick. Thank you so much. I think through your presentation on the particularly vulnerable group of adults, older adults, you helped us also see some of the current challenges when it comes to adult learning, not just more advanced technologies such as AI and the tools which are being developed in the current situation, but also looking at particularly about angle of needs and I guess the styles or the age differences or demands and needs of the population such as adult learners. I think your emphasis throughout this today, for example, in the session, starting from Rebecca to Martin and yourself, particularly highlighted the issue of the holistic, right-based approach, whatever kind of technologies are being introduced when it comes to educational process, making sure that we have always learners and their needs and their capabilities in mind to ensure that we develop the technologies that are really addressing some of the human needs, not just the need of the, let's say, economy or private sector and others. Yeah? I guess a couple of issues that you raised, particularly when dealing with adult learners, looking at the issues such as interdisciplinarity of the approach and also having empowerment of such learners at the center of the development of educational tools and technologies. And I guess with that, I would like to invite our last speaker, my own colleague Annapurna Ayapan. Annapurna works at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and she has been really an important person in the development of our activities at the Institute. She manages UIL's Learning Hub, which is Moodle-based platform for capacity development and learning. She coordinates the development of our digital learning solutions when it comes to for policymakers, practitioners, as well as researchers, specializing in applying instructional design, educational theory, and technology for lifelong learning. I think Annapurna will highlight particularly one of the projects she is currently leading on developing the digital empowerment for lifelong learning, teaching and undergraduate framework, Delta, for adult educators. And she will be particularly speaking about the module that we are developing and will be launching by the mid this year. Annapurna, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Rahat, and thank you for the introduction. For this, I think I'm excited because we had a very good introduction of the different themes and angles from all our previous speakers. And now I'm going to go into a very practitioner perspective. I'm going to go into the perspective of adult educators. And for this particular presentation, I'm going to be using Mentimeter, so that I could also get some responses and to learn from you your perspectives and ideas. So to do that, I think my colleagues are putting in the chat box the link, but also you can simply scan the QR code. I'll just give about a few seconds for some of you to join in on the Menti. All right. So to move into the presentation, I think my first question is to ask you, have you as educators or part of this community used AI in your teaching or experienced AI or have some, experience of planning with AI? Okay, I see that there's a vast majority of us who are, and numbers are increasing, who are using AI in some form or the other, or are engaging with AI in some form of the other in capacity building experiences. And that now brings me to what I would like to talk to you about today, which is I would like to present to you a work that we are doing when it comes to empowering adult educators in terms of leveraging AI and other emerging technologies for adult learning and education. So I'm actually going to give you a sneak peek on into our upcoming capacity building course for adult educators. As you can see on the screen, there's a logo. This is our partner, Shanghai Open University, that is helping us generously with their financially and also helping us to develop this project. So this particular course is part of a larger training framework, which is, as my colleague said, the Delta framework. So what is the Delta framework? It is the Digital Empowerment Lifelong Learning and Teaching and Andragogy framework that UIL is currently developing since 2024. As part of this framework and this whole training package, we have 5 modules that are aligned to educators' instructional practice, digital empowerment, and transformative practice. And one of the modules is focused on AI, emerging technologies, and other advanced technologies such as assistive technologies and adaptive technologies to improve and empower inclusive learning for all learners. But before I go in, I think, as I mentioned before I started the presentation, I want to wear the hat of the adult educator and really bring the focus on the educator rather than the technology. So, who are adult educators? They are a group of diverse professionals, and it's a complex terminology because they represent many types of adult education, ranging from literacy programs, TVET programs, life skills facilitators, and they teach in many types of settings, which include formal settings, non-formal education programs, and also informal settings, and for example, at home with your family members, intergenerational learning, and so on. They also represent many types of learners who have diverse personal characteristics, and they also come from diverse cultural backgrounds, which leads to their own belief systems and their own capabilities in the way they engage with technology. And finally, there are also many types of adult educators. And having been an educator myself, I would like to highlight that there is a big diversity. There are some paid professionals, some who are trained professionals, some who are on a contractual basis, some who are volunteers. So as you can see, this group of adult educators is a very diverse and complex group. And therefore, the trainings should be tailored to their needs and their aspirations. Keeping that in mind, let me wear again the hat of the educator and highlight that this course begins by talking about what the adult educator's environment looks like. So it starts with a lot of reflective questions. And one of the core questions is, what does my environment look like? What is in the best interest of my learners? And there are, and as I want to highlight that this kind of reflective thinking and critical thinking is a core principle that's part of every unit in this course. And some of these questions I would like to bring to you. As I also saw in the Q&A box, several of us were raising questions about barriers, access, and so on. So one of the core questions that we ask while developing this course is, what barriers to digital participation do you as adult educators observe in your adult education environment? How do different learners access to and comfort with technology affect their learning experiences? Moving from barriers and access, we also ask about how are emerging technologies being introduced into your adult education context. And I want to also go back to Rebecca's presentation and ask this question as well, which is who are driving these decisions? What factors are driving these decisions in the environment? Finally, there are questions as part of this module, which is what ethical concerns arise when using technologies with your diverse adult learners? What ethical principles are common in your environment? And finally, how do these translate in online environments? So, given all of these questions, I would like to now bring your focus to the core objectives of this module. First, it is to help adult educators understand the basics of AI, basics of emerging technologies, and to understand the purposes of such technologies for education. Second, it is also to help adult educators critically evaluate the quality and the relevance of the technology and the output for specific instructional purposes. And lastly, the hope is that through the module and through the activities in the module, adult educators can identify themselves as lifelong learners and as facilitators of lifelong learning for their learners. With that, I would like to now give you a course overview, which is more about the overview of the content and also about how the course will be delivered. Firstly, the course is hinged on the key principles of adult learning. Second, it addresses issues such as technophobia, digital well-being, and I saw a lot of questions also on the Q&A box about being overwhelmed with the amount of technologies and tools that are out there. Then reflective practice, gender perspective, and biases. Third, the course is designed to be multimodal. So there is a mix of audio-visual activities. It is activity-based, and we are also trying to introduce a lot of scenario-based thinking and activities, discussion forums, and it is written or designed to be a user-friendly course. We hope to launch the course in English first in May 2025 on UIL's training platform, which is the UIL Learning Hub. And it will be a self-learning course. The course includes 10 units covering different topics such as AI, emerging technologies, digital empowerment, ethics, and responsible AI use. We want to adopt a mobile-first approach, understanding that in many places, mobile technology is the ubiquitous one, and therefore we want to leverage the technology that's already familiar and available to users, and it will be free and open source. Finally, upon the completion of the course, participants will receive a certificate of completion, and also they will be receiving badges of achievement per unit. So this was about the course. Now I would like to actually throw the ball to you. And as educators, as the community that's working in this field, I would like to ask you, what skills do you think adult educators need the most in an AI-driven world? I'll give a few moments so that you can add your responses into your screen. So as we wait for more and more responses to come in, I can see very clearly that the words that are receiving a lot of responses, which is the high frequency words, are critical thinking, adaptability, literacy, empathy, and I see flexibility, and so on. And actually, this is something that makes me really happy because we are not talking about, about just because there is a proliferation of technologies, it does not mean that we run behind and adapt as quick as possible, but rather we are focusing on what are the transferable skills, what are the necessary skills that we need to thrive in this age. So, and I see a lot of problem solving, creativity, and empathy coming up again and again, but the largest being critical thinking. And moving to the next, and to capture all of these skills, we have now covered the course. The course actually covers 3 thematic areas. which represent actually all the skills that you have highlighted as well. The first area being digital foundations and empowerment, where we focus on understanding AI, digital technologies, and their role in adult education. There's a focus on promoting digital empowerment beyond basic literacy. So this includes critical thinking and informed AI use. There is also a unit specifically dedicated to inclusive learning, where we focus on assistive technologies as well. The second theme that we have highlighted is immersive and data-driven learning. So here there is a unit that talks about knowing when, why, and how to use virtual reality, augmented reality, and wearables to enhance experiential learning. Again, I want to highlight over here that it's not about really the technology, it's about really knowing even having the ability to make a decision whether we need this technology or not. So there's also a unit that talks about how to apply learning analytics and learning experience platforms while also addressing issues of data privacy and protection. And finally, there's also a unit that talks about applying digital competencies for self-directed learning. So now talking about self-directed learning, I want to ask you, what's one way that AI could support self-directed learning for adults? Have you used AI for self-directed learning? Or for learning itself, have you ever tried experimenting with these tools? There's someone who's saying I use it every hour. Okay. So trial and error as a personal tutor, resume, prompt engineering for critical thinking, using AI as a coach, generating ideas, really interesting responses. So as you can see, we can actually leverage these technologies for also our own self-directed learning. I see that someone has written about using it for ideas, for generating learning roadmaps, and so on. I personally also learned it from a conference that I was a part of, where there was a speaker who said that it's also good to ask AI to ask you questions by wearing a hat. And I was very surprised to see the kind of responses that I got. So finally, the third theme that our course is covering is responsible and transformative AI use. And here, there's a unit that talks about how to teach about ethical and responsible AI in education. Then there is also a topic that is about understanding generative AI and its application in adult learning. And here we also want to touch upon issues such as when you use AI for generating responses, or when you use it for research, then how do you validate the authenticity? How do you validate the accuracy of the information, and so on? And finally, there is a unit on using AI for transformative teaching and research practices. So these three themes and this overview that I just gave you, of course, does not do justice to cover all the content that is there in the course. But as I said, this is just a sneak peek, and we'll be very happy to connect with you. So here I'll just pause for a few seconds so that you can go through. But it's just to give you an overview of the 10 units and the key focus of each unit. So I'll just give you a few seconds, and then I would like to actually show you a video to give you a sneak peek of the course. Okay, I believe that's not enough time to really go through, but I'm happy to share this later via email. So I would now like to give you a sample of a unit. So this unit is about AI and its use in terms of fake news and to detect fake news and so on. So here is a short video that shows you how we are imagining the look and feel of the course. And I hope you enjoy the video.
The world is changing fast. All around us, machines are learning to think, create, and even feel. Artificial intelligence is no longer a science fiction fantasy. It's here, it's now, and it's transforming our lives. From the apps on our phones to the cars we drive, AI is shaping the way we work, play, and connect with each other. And adult education is no exception. From helping personalize learning for every adult learner to AI tutors, providing individual support and feedback, AI is empowering adult educators to have more time to focus on what matters most, But AI also brings challenges. Is it fair and inclusive for everyone? How do we teach our adult learners to be smart about information created by machines? AI is changing how we learn and teach. What's your role in shaping the future of adult education? In this unit, we'll explore the exciting possibilities and critical challenges of AI in adult education.
So that is a video to give you a quick look and feel of the course. And now I want to actually ask you that since I have presented this upcoming course, how do you see the application of such a course or training in your work or context? I would like to hear from you, and it would be great if you could share some thoughts. I see that there's a lot of interest in capacity building, in professional development, for faculty development. And there's also a potential to make it an onboarding expectation. So I'm very glad to see that there is a lot of interest and excitement about the professional development and for capacity building of facilitators and educators. And therefore, I would now like to pass on to the last question, and then I'll leave you, which is about since you have provided so many ideas, do you also have ideas to diversify the training or potential collaborations, given that this course will be in English in 2025? Okay, I see there's a lot of demand for localization and contextualization and partnerships with other training platforms, as well as translations. I think translations in languages even beyond the UN languages would be interesting, and availability in several formats. I do see there's rising interest in also developing case studies of application and for impact. So I understand that we're running out of time. So I would like to leave you here and really thank you for your engagement, your participation, and your interest. If you are interested in exploring these ideas further and to also discuss the project more and the content, please don't hesitate to email us at uilearningecosystems@unesco.org. You may also scan this QR code, which directly takes you to our platform. And I can also enroll you into specific modules if you're interested. So please do write to us. Thank you so much. And with this, I will hand it over back to Rahat.
Thank you so much, Annapurna, for this wonderful presentation of this sneak peek to our course, which will be launched in the middle of May this year. It's as a part of the larger work that we're doing on digital competencies of adult educators. And very happy to hear a lot of positive response and feedback on such a tool and resource for our participants. And I would like to again highlight that as Annapurna presented, along with the other speakers of the session, the emphasis becomes really developing capacities and capabilities of the users, such as educators and adult learners themselves in a lifelong learning approach, but at the same time, not just being bombarded, but being very critical users of such tools that are being developed currently as well. And they are being integrated into our lives, and our lives are being impacted by them almost every day. With that, I would like to invite all the speakers back to the floor. And I have a few questions which we generated from the Q&A. A lot of you have already responded. I mean, a lot of you raised a lot of questions. Some of our speakers tried to respond to your questions, but I would like to bring back our speakers to respond to 5 questions, and you may choose one of the questions to respond to in the next 5 minutes, and we will just finalize the session with the closing remarks from our director. So first question is about measures. What measures can be implemented to ensure the integration of AI in lifelong learning does not widen the economic gap between those who have access and those who have not. The second question is about what will be the long-term and short-term effects on long-term short-term effects of intensification of the just a minute, sorry. Long-term and short-term effects of intensification of economic and individual notions of education, because we see a lot of, Rebecca highlighted this a lot in terms of the individualizing, personalizing learning, moving away from the social aspect of learning. The third question is about how do you think language professionals particularly should navigate this current scenario where AI is perceived as a reliable substitute for complex language-related tasks. The fourth question is about the context of educational disparities between African nations and advanced economies particularly, and how countries such as Nigeria can effectively leverage AI technologies to bridge the gaps, but also enhance access, quality, and equity in education. And the last question is about how can researchers effectively contribute to the regulation and integration of AI tools in academic research, and ensuring the validity of outputs and adhering to proper citation standards, but also to the research ethics in general, I guess. So I would like to allow my speakers to choose one of the questions and very briefly to respond to them. Maybe we can, anyone who would like to go first, please, welcome.
I'm happy to go for the two about the long-term effects of economic and individual intensification, if that's helpful.
Please, Rebecca. Yeah.
So I feel that it connects with a kind of wider debate about the purposes of lifelong learning and, you know, lifelong education. And I think there's a risk. This is not to say that economic purposes of learning or individual learning are not very positive and very valuable parts of our education system. But I do think we need to think about the more personal focus of learning for our own well-being and our everyday sense of self, and also more democratic purposes of education that really connect us to others, to our local community, to the wider world. And I think in current times, particularly where, you know, AI is having all of these kind of shifts in our society, disinformation, misinformation, lack of trust, risks to the environment, so on, all the negative things as well as the positive things that AI can bring. I do think these connections to one another and these other ways of thinking about education are really important. And I do think there are creative ways that we could use AI to support those things. But I think realistically, for companies who have to make a profit, they're going to focus on specific forms of workplace learning or individualized learning because that makes most market sense. But I think as wider education community, we can think of other ways of incentivizing other ways to support the use of AI that can enable these other aspects to emerge.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Very important, again, highlighting the, some of the points of your own presentation. Thank you. Anyone? Virginia, yes, please.
Yes, I can provide some thoughts regarding how to leverage AI to address educational disparities, mostly regarding the less developed nations. I think one of the things is to localize AI development and to incorporate cultural relevant tools and initiatives and programs. Some of my most concerns regarding infrastructure is the colonization that are being held nowadays when establishing data centers and infrastructures in the global south, but that are used in the global north. So I think sustainability and sustainable infrastructure expansion and digital growth also is very important in this issue regarding AI and the equity-focused policies that to ensure that AI deployment address gaps in underserved communities and allocate targeted resources and prevent further marginalization. And to address local challenges, I think it's very important to AI literacy, to develop digital literacy programs and build skills, digital skills in the curriculum, not only learners, but also in teachers training, and integrate and develop and contribute in the development of AI tools effectively, including the teachers and the learners in this process, and provide subsidies or financial aids for accessing AI-driven learning resources in these countries. I think it's very important and very defiant for everybody.
Okay, thank you so much, Virginia, again for re-emphasizing some of the points of your presentation. Martin, anything you would like to? Yep.
I didn't catch the actual questions because I was too busy answering all these ones on the chat. I did dozens of them, but I did have a thought slightly reminding of Virginia here that just triggered something I would like to say, which is something everyone here can do is there is a colonialism going on by the people who are developing AIs. They are very specifically certain types of data and certain viewpoints and certain languages, as we know. But rather than just complaining about the bias, we need to correct the bias, and all of us can think about, well, what is missing? What would we like to see in these things? And do that work locally, like collect it, get it online, or push it at LLMs. I have a project that I suggested at Open Education Global for them to kind of manage a process of collecting these. I haven't had a lot of interest yet there, but I'm still pushing. But I think we could all be doing that. We can't talk about colonialization and the loss of our local culture if the local culture isn't written down somewhere and defined and out there. So that's something we can all do. Maybe that triggers something in somebody out there, but particularly in the educational space. Wikipedia is great and all, but it's just text mostly and some images. In education, we have lesson plans and all kinds of other things that we could be collecting and putting online and getting it out there.
Okay, thank you for re-emphasizing about the proactive nature of the individuals into correcting the course of their development as well and the gaps. Annapurna, any last statement, and then we will give it to our director to close the session.
Thank you, Rahat. I think great points. I just wanted to go back to this question on language professionals. We had a lot of debates and discussions with colleagues and friends. And I think one important thing is instead of embracing AI or these technologies as a replacement, we look at it as a tool by integrating. I think this is something Martin also presented, where we integrate it into our workflows so that they enhance our efficiency and we can then focus on more complex, creative, and nuanced aspects of the work. For example, for translators, they can leverage AI for initial brainstorming for drafts, but it allows them to concentrate more on refining and ensuring cultural accuracy. Or for writers, they can use it for generating initial brainstorming and ideas, but they can, when they draft it, they use it more to bring out their unique voice and style. So essentially that's what I was thinking when I saw that question. Yeah.
Thank you, Annapurna, for your response, particularly on language one. I think in general, today's discussion was more about the platform for all of us to bring together some of the lessons that we are drawing from the research practice, as well as some of the policy ideas that we have. And I think I would like to highlight that this is the beginning of our discussion on thinking around AI and lifelong learning. And with that, I would like to thank all the speakers for your generous time and sharing your ideas. And I would like to request our director, Ms. Isabel Kemp, to close the session today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rakat, the team, and also all our wonderful speakers, and also to the participants for the really good questions. I would like to say that it was really an important opportunity to see that AI not only offers opportunities for individual lifelong learning, but really also for collective lifelong learning, and for designing the future that we would like to see. I'm thinking about, forecasting of the weather, of climate impacts, health and pollution, that AI can really help us to better understand collectively and not only as individuals. And I think this is a really important part as well. It also shows that there will be an impact on the educational system. We will need many more future skills and new skills and adult age, also from early childhood onwards. Critical thinking was mentioned, creativity, social and emotional skills such as empathy and collaboration will become increasingly important. And many of these skills are skills we now learn a bit later in life at, maybe university or at work. But I think we really need them from early, childhood onwards, and the educational system needs to adapt also accordingly. I also would like to talk about just briefly that we really need to ensure the ethical and equitable use of AI, because there is a growing gap already in competencies and knowledge, and we need knowledge and competencies to really navigate in a more and more complex world. So knowledge and skills continue to be power. So we really need to make sure that it's distributed in an equitable manner. And also, last but not least, that the digital access to AI is part of the right to education and the lifelong learning, and it's also a public good. And that's why it's so important that the users not only know how to use it, but that they're also able to make decisions about, how we would like to use it and for what kind of aims. So thank you for this, and I'm really very much now hopefully hoping that you're all engaging in this discussion in the future from wherever you are in your professions. And hope to see you in our next webinars and discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isabel. Annapurna, maybe we can thank everybody and close the webinar link. Thank you, Martin, Virginia, and Rebecca.
Thank you, Rahat. Thank you, Isabel. I think I was so lost in the questions in the question and answer box. And also, thank you so much, Isabel, and all the speakers for your contributions, for your inspiration. And I am also walking away with a lot of ideas generated from today's webinar. And hopefully, we can continue this as a series of webinar, as a series of discussions on this important topic. Once again, happy International Day of Education, and I'm happy to be in touch through the links and the QR codes shared. But with that, we'll sign off and wish you a very happy weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you.